This episode is brought to you by Target. The ninth and final, well, for now anyway, entry in the Skywalker part of the Star Wars saga, The Rise of Skywalker, is coming soon. So of course it's time for a little reminder of how we got here, but there's just so much. If we wanted to cover everything Star Wars from the Old Republic to Baby Yoda, we'd be here for weeks. The Ewoks themselves got 2 movies. 2! So for the sake of time and our sanity, we're going to focus on the 3 generations of Skywalkers. Anakin's journey from Manic Pixie Scheme Boy to Mufasa voiced cyborg assassin, Luke and Leia's voyage of self-discovery, and Kylo Ren's constantly evolving helmet choices. That's it. No Kessel runs, no Life Day celebrations. We have to focus. The story of Star Wars opens, as all great fantasy sagas must, with a multifaceted fiduciary conflict. A powerful shipping conglomerate called the Trade Federation, at the behest of a mysterious figure called Lord Sidious, has arranged a total blockade of the planet Naboo. Riveting stuff, I know. 2 Jedi Knights, Qui-Gon Jinn and his apprentice Obi-Wan Kenobi, are dispatched to negotiate an end to the blockade.
I have a bad feeling about this.
But once they arrive, they see that the Federation is already preparing to invade the planet. They go down to the surface to warn everyone and meet a native, Jar Jar Binks. Everyone loves him right away.
Misa called Jar Jar Binks. Misa, your humble servant.
After a lot of comical business,
you suck in big doo-doo this time.
The Jedi meet up with the planet's ruler, Queen Amidala, and also a helpful droid, R2-D2. They all escape the planet and blockade to safety. There's just one problem.
We'll have to land somewhere to refuel and repair the ship.
Yeah, Master. Tatooine.
Once on Tatooine, Queen Amidala goes undercover as a handmaiden, calling herself Padme, so she can explore more freely. At the Mos Espa spaceport, Qui-Gon finds the part he needs at a junk shop owned by Watto. Watto owns 2 slaves, a woman named Shmi Skywalker and her son, a precocious tot named Anakin.
I'm a pilot, you know, and someday I'm gonna fly away from this place.
Padme and Anakin become fast friends.
I'm glad to have met you, Anakin.
The problem is the Jedi can't afford the parts they need because Watto is unreasonable and miserly.
My trick's gonna work, gonna make only money.
So Anakin agrees to enter a pod race on behalf of his new friends and use the winnings to fix their spacecraft.
The prize money would more than pay for the parts they need.
As they prepare for the race, Qui-Gon becomes convinced that not only is Anakin particularly sensitive to the Force,
he can see things before they happen. It's a Jedi trait.
But he may have a great and meaningful destiny. This feeling is confirmed when Obi-Wan discovers that Anakin's blood contains a whole mess of midichlorians, Force-sensitive organisms that live symbiotically within a person's cells.
The reading is off the chart.
And then this feeling is double confirmed when Shmi tells him that Anakin was immaculately conceived.
There was no father. I carried him, I gave birth, I raised him. I can't explain what happened.
That is a lot to just drop on someone. Man, she does not prep him for this bombshell at all. Anyway, just before the race, Qui-Gon makes a side bet with Tevye for Anakin's freedom.
I'll wager my new racing pod against, say, the boy and his mother.
Anakin wins the race, and though Qui-Gon was able to secure his freedom and plans to train him to be a Jedi, Shmi has to stay behind.
I will come back and free you, Mom. I promise.
Oh, also, Anakin built a protocol droid named C-3PO for some weird reason, and in a perfect display of why it's fortunate that children can't actually design sentient life forms, Anakin coldly abandons his creation to slowly go mad by himself in an empty room.
I'll make sure Mom doesn't sell you or anything.
This was maybe an early warning sign. We need to talk about Anakin. As they're leaving Tatooine, Qui-Gon is attacked by a mysterious lightsaber-wielding warrior, Darth Maul. He's the apprentice of Lord Sidious, from the trade thing before, remember? Qui-Gon just barely manages to get away, and they all head for Coruscant, the capital of the Galactic Republic, to make Naboo's case before the Senate. Anakin, clearly infatuated with Padme, whom he doesn't know is actually the Queen of Naboo, gives her a good luck charm called a Japor snippet that he's carved for her. Then they get to the capital, and the movie becomes an episode of House of Cards for about 20 minutes. Basically, Naboo's Senator Palpatine convinces Padme/Amidala to help him get rid of the current Chancellor, a guy named Valorum, so that Palpatine can take his place.
Senator Palpatine has been nominated to succeed Valorum as Supreme Chancellor.
Qui-Gon brings Anakin before the Jedi Council, and they're not quite sure what to make of him, but he's by now totally convinced of Anakin's importance.
You refer to the prophecy of the one who will bring balance to the Force.
Since the Republic seems unwilling to help, everyone returns to Naboo. Once there, Padme reveals that she was actually Amidala all along, and Keira Knightley was just a decoy. Padme Amidala makes a deal with Jar Jar's people, the Gungans, to work together to fight off the Trade Federation. During the battle, Anakin and R2 hide on a starfighter and accidentally launch themselves into space. They take out the control ship that operates all the Trade Federation's battle droids, winning the day. Darth Maul returns and faces both Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan in this movie's one universally beloved thing. Taking advantage of a well-placed and carefully timed barrier, he mortally wounds Qui-Gon as Obi-Wan looks on helplessly. Still, Obi-Wan gets his revenge, but you know, he's a Jedi, so it's reluctant revenge. With his dying breath, Qui-Gon asks Obi-Wan to train Anakin.
Promise me you will train the boy.
And he agrees.
We will watch your career with great interest.
Because he's the Emperor. Episode 2 picks up 10 years after the Battle of Naboo. Padme is serving as a senator representing Naboo when an attack is made on her life. Her steadfast belief that other people are more expendable than herself means that she has survived once again. Former Senator Palpatine, now the Supreme Chancellor of the entire Republic, assigns the Jedi to protect her, bringing her back in touch with Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker, his now young adult apprentice.
Annie? My goodness, you've grown.
That's what I love about these outer space senators, man. I get older, they stay the same age. Since we last saw him, Anakin has grown restless under Obi-Wan's command.
In some ways. A lot of ways. I'm really ahead of him.
And has convinced himself that he's desperately in love with his old pal. Padme, not Obi-Wan. And honestly, kind of a scary way.
She covered the cameras. I don't think she liked me watching her.
Padme goes into hiding on her world of Naboo under Anakin's watchful yet creepy protection, while Anakin proclaims his hatred for his local ecosystem.
I don't like sand.
Obi-Wan investigates the threat to Padme's life at a 50s diner, which somehow exists in space long before there was a 1950s. On Naboo, Anakin and Padme fall in love, while Obi-Wan's investigation leads him to the planet Kamino, where he discovers that an army of clones has been created for the Republic, supposedly on the orders of the Jedi Council.
1,000 units are ready, with 1,000,000 more well on the way.
Anakin has a nightmare about his mother, leading him back to his homeworld of Tatooine. There, he reunites with his totally non-stereotypical friend Watto, and discovers that his mother has been freed from slavery by a man named Klieg Lars, only to be enslaved once more by a native tribe, the Tusken Raiders. Anakin finds her just in time to watch her die. So he takes out the entire encampment, including women and children.
And I slaughtered them like animals.
Anyway, Obi-Wan discovers that the clone army is modeled on a bounty hunter named Jango Fett, whom he trails to the planet of Geonosis. This is where the Trade Federation has been building its droid army, and also where the powerful Count Dooku has been building an alliance of other separatists who plan to leave the Republic. Obi-Wan sends a message to the Jedi about what he's discovered before being captured. In response to this new threat, on Coruscant, Supreme Chancellor Palpatine is given more central control over the government, essentially by Jar Jar Binks.
Misa propose that the Senate give immediately emergency powers to the Supreme Chancellor.
Anakin and Padme get the message and go after Obi-Wan, but despite their best efforts, they're captured. This leads to a face-off in the Geonosis arena between Dooku's droid army and the Jedi, and ultimately, this fight sparks what comes to be known as the Clone Wars between the clone army of the Republic and Dooku's droid-supported separatists. As the battle rages, Dooku takes out Obi-Wan, and Anakin intervenes to save him at the cost of his own arm. Then Yoda shows up just in time to get tranced out and put on a sick light show. Anyway, Dooku escapes. The film ends with Anakin and Padme getting married despite the Jedi mandate not to form attachments, but at least Yoda's feeling upbeat.
The shroud of the dark side has fallen. Begun. The Clone War has.
As we start episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, ongoing the Clone War is. Anakin and Obi-Wan sneak past a massive battle in the skies over Coruscant and onto the ship of the droid army's commander, General Grievous, a half-alien, half-droid monstrosity.
Jedi scum.
It's a rescue mission, for you see, Grievous and Count Dooku have kidnapped Supreme Chancellor Palpatine.
You won't get away this time, Dooku.
And he doesn't, because Anakin cuts off his hands and then decapitates him. Hey, his friend told him to, okay? Do it. Grievous gets away, while Anakin brings Grievous' ship down on Coruscant safely, just barely. Once back in the capital, Anakin gets some exciting news.
I'm pregnant.
but immediately becomes plagued by horrific nightmares in which his beloved dies giving birth. Though his Jedi friends encourage him to just, not experience grief.
Train yourself to let go.
His other friend, the Supreme Chancellor, goes a different way with it, telling him that the Sith, the dark version of the Jedi, have unlocked the secret of immortality.
You ever hear the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise? He could even keep the ones he cared about from dying.
This is the better sales pitch. I have to think the Jedi would have stronger conversion rates if they amended their script a little. Obi-Wan tracks General Grievous to the Outer Rim planet of Utapau and kills him in a duel. He found his one weakness, being shot in the heart. This essentially brings the Clone Wars to a close, so Palpatine, sensing the time is right, reveals himself to Anakin.
My mentor taught me everything about the Force, even the nature of the dark side.
Though Anakin's first instinct is to go to the Jedi and warn them,
I think Chancellor Palpatine is a Sith Lord.
When it really matters during a climactic battle between Palpatine and Mace Windu, he ultimately sides with Palpatine and his promise to save Padme's life. Anakin is now all in on the dark side, and he even gets a new name, Dexter Jettster.
Darth Vader.
Yeah, okay, Dexter Jettster's better. Palpatine then sends Vader to wipe out everyone left at the Jedi Temple, even the younglings. He also activates a secret bit of programming installed within the minds of all the clone troopers spread out around the galaxy. It's called Order 66, and it tasks them with killing every Jedi they can find. No, not that guy. Newly dubbed Darth Vader travels to the volcano planet Mustafar, where the remnants of the Separatist leadership are hiding out, and kills them. Oh, yellow eyes. That's how you know he's evil. Or he has jaundice. Palpatine declares himself the Emperor.
The Republic will be reorganized into the first galactic empire.
And Padme goes after Anakin, hoping to save him. However, Obi-Wan stows away on her ship, planning to kill him. Padme confronts Lord Vader, but finds she can't seem to get through to him.
Anakin, you're breaking my heart.
Then Obi-Wan reveals himself, and they have an epic duel, at first through the Mustafar Convention Center, and ultimately over and in the planet's many picturesque lava rivers. Meanwhile, Yoda battles the Emperor and gets his ass handed to him, escaping with the help of Senator Bail, Jimmy Smits Organa, and his groovy space convertible. Now let's see, where did we leave Vader and Obi-Wan? Oh yeah, eventually Obi-Wan gets the high ground.
It's over, Anakin! I have the high ground!
But Vader foolishly ignores his high ground having at the cost of both his legs. Obi-Wan heroically takes off, leaving his old friend screaming and on fire. Vader is ultimately rescued by Emperor Palpatine and converted into the mostly robot monster we know and love. On the way back from Mustafar, Padme gives birth to twins, Luke and Leia, then dies. Wait, really? Of what?
We don't know why. She has lost the will to live.
Anyway, there's a very sad funeral on Naboo, and she's buried with the little necklace carving that baby Anakin gave her in the first movie. Remember that? You should. I pointed it out to you specifically for this payoff. Yoda, Obi-Wan, and Senator Organa decide to split the twins up to hide them before the Jedi Order goes on hiatus. So Senator Organa takes Leia to live as a princess on Alderaan.
We've always talked of adopting a baby girl.
While Obi-Wan takes Luke.
To Tatooine. To his family send him.
So you're going to hide him with his family on the planet where he came from. Good plan. Palpatine, meanwhile, tells his apprentice that he killed the love of his life.
You killed her.
Wow, way to add insult to injury. Pick a better moment, Palps. Then the new duo inspect. Wait, they're building the Death Star already? How did they manage to keep this a secret for 19 years? Obi-Wan found out where Anakin was in like 19 minutes. So 19 years later, Rogue One happens, and a team of rebel spies manage to steal blueprints for the Imperial station, the Death Star, that gives away its fatal weakness. After the entire team of spies dies in the process, and many crew members give their lives to a Darth Vader action sequence, the plans are delivered to Anakin's daughter Leia, who's now both Princess of Alderaan and an agent of the Galactic Rebellion. Then we continue with flashback to episode 4 of the Star Wars saga A New Hope, which picks up right where Rogue One leaves off. Leia's ship is captured by the Empire, the very Empire against which she's rebelling. Knowing that she'll be captured by Darth Vader, whom of course she has no idea is her father.
You are part of the Rebel Alliance and a traitor. Take her away!
Leia downloads the plans into R2-D2, whom of course she has no idea used to belong to her father, and then sends R2-D2 to the planet Tatooine, which of course she has no idea is her father's home planet, to deliver the plans to a still hiding Obi-Wan Kenobi.
You served my father in the Clone Wars. Now he begs you to help him in his struggle against the Empire. Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
R2 brings along C-3PO, whom he probably knows was originally built by Darth Vader when he was a kid, but, you know, just doesn't say anything about it, or beep anything about it. Once there, they get captured by Jawas and eventually sold to Luke Skywalker's Uncle Owen, the moisture farmer who's been raising him. And this is a real bummer for Luke, who already had some big plans.
But I was going into Tosche Station to pick up some power converters.
He never does get those power converters. While cleaning the droids up, Luke discovers Leia's message. Luke and the droids track down Obi-Wan and show him Leia's message. He denies knowing R2-D2, which is weird.
Don't seem to remember ever owning a droid.
But cops to knowing Luke's father.
He was the best star pilot in the galaxy.
He also gives Luke Anakin's old lightsaber and encourages him to learn about the Force and train to become a Jedi because it's so fun and not at all dangerous. By the time Luke returns to the farm, the Empire has tracked the droids there and killed both his aunt and uncle. Luke is devastated for exactly 6 seconds, then agrees to go with Obi-Wan to deliver the Death Star plans to the rebellion on Leia's home world of Alderaan.
I want to learn the ways of the Force and become a Jedi like my father.
To get there, they hire a smuggler named Han Solo and his associate Chewbacca. Saga-wise, we've technically met these characters already, but it was another movie that really doesn't matter, who agrees to ferry them in his ship, the Millennium Falcon. First, though, Han has to murder this bounty hunter known only as
Maclunkey.
On the way, Obi-Wan begins Luke's training. Han claims not to believe in the Force, and even though his co-pilot Chewie was best friends with Yoda, he doesn't say anything. Unfortunately, before they can make it to Alderaan, the Empire destroys the entire planet as a demonstration of the Death Star's power. By the time Luke, Obi-Wan, Han, you know, everybody arrives, there's no one here but us Death Stars. The Falcon is pulled into the massive station by a tractor beam. The team sneaks on board and splits up. Luke, Han, and the droids go save the captive Princess Leia, while Obi-Wan shuts down the power to the tractor beam so they can escape. They're about to get away.
Good luck.
They don't know yet, you guys. They don't know. So, Obi-Wan and Darth Vader meet for the first time, for the last time.
Only a master of evil, Darth.
He calls him Darth? Isn't that more of a title granted to all Sith Lords? Is that like calling him Mister? Obi-Wan throws the fight, but when Vader goes in for the kill, he vanishes. It's a bold strategy, Cotton, but it does give everyone a chance to get away. Luke's so upset to lose the encouraging hobo he knew for a day and a half that Leia, who just lost her entire planet, steps in to comfort him. Han, meanwhile, can't be bothered and just wants to get this bunch off his ship.
Look, I ain't in this for your revolution, and I'm not in it for you, Princess. I expect to be well paid. I'm in it for the money.
They deliver the plans, and top rebellion engineers quickly discover the Death Star's fatal flaw. A small exhaust port that, when hit with torpedoes, triggers a chain reaction that will blow up the entire station. And if the logic of that bothers you, just know that Mads Mikkelsen built it that way on purpose. There, feel better?
Well, I used to bullseye womp rats in my T-16 back home. They're not much bigger than T-meters.
Turns out the rebels get to put these plans to use soon because Vader tracked the Falcon and shows up in the Death Star to destroy both the rebel base and the rebellion itself. Luke goes along on the mission because, hey, why not? But it turns out he doesn't need experience because his elderly drifter friend is now speaking to him from beyond the grave.
Use the Force, Luke.
Luke turns off his targeting computer and plans to make the shot using the Force. Luke's on the verge of getting blasted by Darth Vader when Han and Chewie show up out of nowhere, saving the day. Luke makes the shot and destroys the Death Star, and both he and Han get fancy medals. Not Chewie, though. Chewie. What did he do? A whole lot of nothing. He never even told his best friend he met Yoda. 3 years later, the rebellion is regrouped and built a new, even basier base on the ice planet of Hoth, which is where they're discovered by an Imperial probe droid. Luke, who's strong with the Force but not knowledge of astronomy, mistakes it for a meteorite and goes to check it out, only to get attacked and nearly killed by an abominable snow creature known as a Wampa. He's saved from being devoured/frozen by Han, but first he's visited by 3 ghosts who remind him about the true meaning of Christmas. Oh wait, no, that's Scrooge. Luke just sees one ghost, and this message is not at all holiday related.
You will go to the Dagobah system.
Dagobah system.
There you will learn from Yoda.
It's good advice because the Empire has found them on Hoth and is mounting a full assault.
General, prepare your troops for a surface attack.
Han, Leia, Chewie, and C-3PO escape on the Millennium Falcon. They have all kinds of fun adventures that we don't really have time for. And they end up hiding out at a mining colony called Cloud City, hovering above the planet Bespin. It's managed by Han's old friend, Lando Calrissian. Meanwhile, Luke and R2-D2 leave Hoth bound for Dagobah because you should always do whatever your mentor for 3 days tells you when you're bleeding out in the early stages of hypothermia and full-on hallucinating. Luke drops his X-Wing onto the planet's swampy surface and meets Yoda, who's either testing him or has gone a little sideways from the Dagobah heat.
R2!
Yoda agrees to train him in the ways of the Jedi, which consist largely of swinging from vines, having visions in caves, and being force-shamed.
Much anger in him. Like his father.
Meanwhile, Emperor Palpatine, remember him, senses Luke's growing power and sends his apprentice a warning.
The son of Skywalker must not become a Jedi.
Vader decides to recruit his son rather than killing him.
He will join us or die, Master.
So he makes a deal with Lando to turn Luke's friends over to the Empire, which Lando does because capes aren't cheap. Vader has Han frozen in carbonite.
I love you.
I know.
And turned over to bounty hunter Boba Fett, who it turns out is a clone of Jango Fett that was raised as his own son. Remember those two? Boba plans to deliver Han to the crime lord Jabba the Hutt in the next movie. Vader then uses Leia as bait to lure Luke to Cloud City. It works even though Yoda and Ben the Friendly Ghost urge him not to go.
You must not go.
But Han and Leia will die if I don't.
Vader gets the drop on Luke and they fight. Meanwhile, Lando has second thoughts.
This deal is getting worse all the time.
And, along with the real star of this trilogy, Lobot, turns the tables on the Empire and frees Leia and Chewie. Luke impresses Vader with his sweet saber skills.
Obi-Wan has taught you well.
But the old man still cuts off the kid's hand. Hey, it's the only way he'll learn. Then it's confession time.
I am your father.
No! Maury, Maury, Maury. Luke opts not to join Dad on the dark side and instead plunges down a massive shaft, which seems like it will lead to certain death, but instead neatly deposits him in an air vent leading underneath the city. That's where Luke uses the Force to telepathically contact Leia and tell her where to pick him up, like an intergalactic Uber. I'm the guy in the flight suit, hanging upside down. No, the south side of the station. The underneath side. I still don't see you. The movie ends with the reunited rebel friends making plans to rescue Han from Jabba the Hutt's palace.
I'll meet you at the rendezvous point on Tatooine.
Also, Luke gets a new hand. Now let's never speak of this hand business again. We jump to about a year later and the Empire is hard at work on a second Death Star, which is somehow almost done, even though the other one took an entire generation to build. I mean, they learned a lot that first time through. Don't underestimate the value of on-the-job experience. Meanwhile, Luke has a plan to save Han from Jabba the Hutt's palace on Tatooine. First, he sends in the droids with a message.
I seek an audience with your greatness to bargain for Solo's life.
Then he has Lando sneak in and pose as a guard, while Leia enters in disguise and frees Han. Then, and this is key, they all get captured. Next step, Luke breaks into the palace himself, and he gets captured. Wait, was this his plan? Has the plan failed, or is it still the plan? Unclear. Regardless, they all end up on Jabba's barge, en route to the home of a creature called the Sarlacc, who is eager to slowly digest them. Luke escapes, while Han, still blind and woozy from the long carbonite sleep, accidentally kills the otherwise very tough, badass, and impressive Boba Fett. Leia, who disliked her slave costume so much it has made her literally homicidal, chokes Jabba the Hutt to death, and they all get away. Luke returns to Dagobah to find Yoda, of extreme old age, dying.
Sick have I become. Old and weak.
Wow, baby Yoda is way cuter. I mean, it's no contest. Yoda also drops a final truth bomb on his unsuspecting Padawan.
There is another Skywalker.
Soon after, Luke's old friend, the Ghost Hermit, apparates and comes clean about the whole hiding the truth about Darth Vader thing.
So what I told you was true, from a certain point of view.
So it was also not true from a certain point of view. Ghosts love semantic arguments. That's actually the plot of The Conjuring 3 as well. Obi-Wan also gives Luke some insight into Yoda's final words.
The other he spoke of is your twin sister.
Leia.
Armed with all this new insight, Luke returns to his rebel friends just as they're figuring out what to do about Death Star Chapter 2. So the plan is to send a strike team down to a base on a moon orbiting the planet Endor, which is generating the shield that protects the new Death Star. If they take down the shield, fighters can enter the Death Star and blow it up before it's operational. Once on the moon, the team evades some stormtroopers on speeder bikes and makes contact with a friendly tribe of teddy bears known as the Ewoks. Oh, the adorable made-for-TV adventures they'll have. The group spends the night at the Ewok village where C-3PO invents Kramit.
Uto Millennium Falcon at Chimney Cloud City.
And Luke tells Leia what he learned from Yoda and Obi-Wan.
Somehow, I've always known.
Come on, you haven't always known, or you would have said something. Don't lie. Luke also tells Leia that he's determined to save their father from the Emperor.
There is good in him, I felt it.
So he turns himself over to the Empire willingly.
I've accepted the truth that you were once Anakin Skywalker, my father.
Once he has Luke as his captive, the Emperor reveals that, well, I'll let Admiral Akbar say it. It's his big moment.
It's a trap!
The Empire has troops waiting for the strike team on the Endor moon, and they can already fire the Death Star at the incoming rebel ships. Palpatine plans to use this trap to make Luke so angry that he'll turn to the dark side, replace his father, and doom the rebellion and the galaxy.
I can feel your anger.
Luke almost does it too, angrily fighting Darth Vader in a lightsaber duel and cutting off his hand. But the good side of the Force prevails, and Luke decides not to break bad.
Never. I'll never turn to the dark side.
Palpatine reacts to this choice by deciding to give up on turning Luke and just kill him with Force lightning. Finally, Anakin Skywalker decides he's had enough of this Darth Vader thing and turns on his master, picking up the Emperor and throwing him down a vent to what certainly appears to be his death, but who knows? J.J. Abrams, that's who knows. Let's hope you know what you're doing, J.J. Han tricks the very dumb Imperials into opening up the base, which he then blows up, which takes down the Death Star shields, allowing Lando and the Millennium Falcon to fly in and take it out. Again, Luke says a final goodbye to his father.
Tell your sister you are right.
They all meet back up for a celebration in the Ewok village. The prequels have a celebration of their own, and this is where we're currently robbed of that timeless classic, the Yub Nub song. Also, Leia tells Han about her and Luke. Luke burns Vader's body, thus somehow turning him back into Hayden Christensen for the latest edition, and they all lived happily ever after. For a few years, then things totally go to shit. In the decades after Return of the Jedi, a new military autocracy formed from the remnants of the Empire, calling itself the First Order.
All remaining systems will bow to the First Order!
As you can see, they're still big fans of Nazi fashion, stormtroopers, and enormous spherical weapons. In this case, a planet-sized laser cannon called Starkiller Base. At the head of the First Order is the mysterious Supreme Leader Snoke, along with his lieutenants General Hux and Kylo Ren. Kylo Ren, it turns out, is the no-good, bratty son of Han Solo and Princess Leia. Ben Solo was being trained in the ways of the Force by his uncle Luke Skywalker, but something went very, very wrong. Now he's become twisted and evil and dreams of having big Darth energy just like his grandpa Annie. Luke took all this badly and disappeared, Leia became a general in the Resistance fighting against the First Order, and Han went back to smuggling. Hey, this is all important stuff. 30 years passed. Alright, so the movie begins on the desert world of Jakku. An old man named Max von Sydow gives a map showing Luke Skywalker's present location to a Resistance pilot, Poe Dameron. But they're interrupted by Kylo Ren and the First Order. Poe is captured,
put him on board.
But first he stashes the map in his trusty droid BB-8, who gets away.
You get as far away from here as you can.
Kylo reads Poe's mind and figures out that the droid has the map, and then Poe escapes with the help of a fugitive stormtrooper who's decided he's just not that into stormtroopering. His name is really just a bunch of letters and numbers.
FN2187. Finn, I'm gonna call you Finn, is that alright?
Yeah, that does seem easier. Finn and Poe escape in a TIE fighter, but get separated once it crashes on the surface of Jakku. BB-8 is rescued by a scavenger named Rey, who was abandoned by her parents on Jakku many years before. Maybe. Rey and Finn meet and realize they're helping out the same guy.
I helped him escape, but her ship crashed.
And Finn starts off the relationship on a very healthy, positive note by lying to her about everything.
With the Resistance, yeah. I am with the Resistance.
Just then, the First Order arrives looking for BB-8 and the Skywalker map, so they escape in the Millennium Falcon, which has conveniently been stashed and left to the elements nearby. Kylo takes it well. Once the Falcon's in flight, it's immediately tracked and boarded by Han Solo and Chewbacca,
Chewie, we're home.
Who agree to help get the droid/map to the Resistance.
It's true. The Force, the Jedi, all of it.
Han takes his new friends to a castle on planet Takodana, owned by an old, Force-sensitive friend named Maz Kanata. You'd think he would have learned his lesson about trusting old, apparently quite wealthy friends, but he did not. At the castle, strange voices lead Rey to an old crate containing the lightsaber once owned by both Anakin and Luke Skywalker, and last seen plummeting down a ventilation shaft on Cloud City. She also has a strange vision of a Next Time on Star Wars promo, and realizes that she too can access the power of the Force.
That lightsaber was Luke's and his father's before him, and now it calls to you.
The First Order, just generally losing patience with all this world building and catch-up, demonstrates the awesome power of Starkiller Base by wiping out the entire Hosnian system. Then an attachment including Kylo Ren arrives on Takodana. The plan is to take BB-8, but Kylo finds Rey first, realizes she's seen the map herself, and decides to just kidnap her and read her mind. This turns out to be harder than he expected. A lot harder.
Resisted you.
She is strong with the Force.
Back on Takodana, Poe shows up with some backup, allowing everyone else to escape and join the Resistance at their base on Dakar. The Resistance formulates a plan to take out the base.
So we disable the shields, we take out the oscillator, and we blow up their big gun.
See how easy cramming it is when we all work together? Okay, so Finn, Han, and Chewie take the Falcon to the surface of Starkiller Base, and Finn forces his old boss, Captain Phasma, who does not just have a cool uniform, but a ton of personality and a lot of very important responsibilities, to lower the base's shields. Rey, utilizing the Force power of perfect timing, escapes from captivity by using the Jedi mind trick on Daniel Craig.
You will remove these restraints and leave this cell with the door open.
I will remove these restraints and leave the cell with the door open.
And meets up with her friends. They decide to plant charges around the oscillator, making it easier for the fighters to blow up Starkiller Base, but are interrupted by Kylo Ren. Ben! Han tries to reason with him because, you know, he seems so reasonable.
Leave here with me. Come home.
I am still not over this. So Chewie sets off the charges, allowing the X-Wings to blow up the oscillator, and the entire planet weapon thing begins imploding on itself. As the planet crumbles, it makes a very dramatic backdrop for this important lightsaber battle between Finn, Rey, and Kylo. Finn's badly injured, but Rey does very well, overpowering Kylo Ren, scarring his face and leaving him for dead. But he's fine. Starkiller Base, not as much. Back at the Resistance base, R2-D2 and BB-8 put their maps together and plot Luke Skywalker's actual location. Rey says goodbye to a still recovering Finn and takes the Millennium Falcon to find him, and she does in an iconic Star Wars moment that could never be undercut. Luke loves fresh milk now. More on that in just a moment. Episode 8, the popular one, picks up right where Episode 7 left off. Finn's still recovering from his injuries, the First Order is bearing down on the Resistance base, and Rey is on the remote planet, the non-definitively pronounced Act 2, trying to convince Luke Skywalker to come back and fight. But he's hesitant. Still blaming himself for Kylo Ren's turn to the dark side, Luke has shut himself off from the Force and developed some radical views.
It's time for the Jedi to end.
Not to mention unconventional tastes. See? I told you we'd get there. The Resistance manages to get most of their people out of their base and into ships, and they think they've gotten away, but new First Order tech limits their escape options.
They've tracked us through lightspeed.
Kylo Ren leads a team in an attack on the rebels, but hesitates to actually fire on his own mother, General Leia, on the bridge. Fortunately, his colleagues in the TIE fighters have no such qualms. Admiral Akbar dies like he lived, in a trap, but Leia survives using the Force and floats back into the ship. She's unconscious from the strain, so Admiral Laura Dern is appointed to take her place.
We are the spark that will light the fire that will restore the Republic.
While Laura Dern and the Resistance continue slowly fleeing from the First Order, Finn wakes up.
Where's Rey?
He tries to escape the Resistance and go find his friend, but he's stopped by a techie named Rose. Rose recently lost her sister Paige, who died during a battle that I skipped over for time. Finn, Rose, and Poe come up with a plan to get away from the First Order by sneaking onto Snoke's ship, which is tracking them.
Disable the tracker. Our fleet escapes before they realize.
So Finn and Rose go to the casino city of Canto Bight to find a code breaker who can do the actual sneaking. Back on Act 2, Luke is giving Rey some very depressing lessons in why the Jedi were, in fact, pretty bad.
At the height of their powers, they allowed Darth Sidious to rise, create the Empire, and wipe them out.
Also, Rey has formed a personal connection with Kylo Ren, allowing them to force time so that Kylo can share his super sad story about the time he thought his uncle tried to kill him. Such a ray of sunshine, that Kylo Ren. But he can wear the hell out of those high-waisted pants. Rey tells Kylo about a vision where she went into a cave of mirrors or something looking for her parents, but Luke interrupts like any surrogate father in a movie when his little girl is talking to a boy with the door closed. Rey becomes convinced that she can save Kylo Ren and win the war against the First Order, and given the chance to redeem his failings as a teacher, Luke continues to fail as a teacher and refuses to join her. Rey leaves Act 2 to find Kylo.
If I go to him, Ben Solo will turn.
In spite of Luke's warnings. Then Force Ghost Yoda pops up for a cameo. Luke threatens to burn the sacred Jedi text, then Yoda just does it for him and basically calls him a big old dummy.
The need in front of your nose.
Back at the casino, Finn and Rose watch some enslaved stable hands being subjected to cruel abuse by their master, and ride some alien horsies, and get into so many adventures they never even bother meeting the codebreaker they were sent to find from the Thoreau system. But they do grab a thief named DJ who agrees to help them.
Codebreaker? Thief? I can do it.
Good enough. Back at the Resistance fleet, after some fighting with Poe, Admiral Laura Dern reveals her plan to use the main cruiser to distract the First Order while the Resistance members board transports and take refuge on the mining planet Crate. This process starts as everyone else enters Snoke's Star Destroyer, the Supremacy, and gets taken prisoner pretty much immediately. DJ actually turned Rose and Finn in because he's a terrible guy. Rey shows up to turn Kylo Ren to the good side and is taken to Snoke, who reveals his extremely tasteful gold bathrobe. Also, he was the one who connected her to Kylo Ren's mind in order to lure her there.
And you were not wise enough to resist the bait.
Kylo snaps and takes Snoke out. Man, I am glad we did not get too wrapped up in the mysteries of that guy's backstory. Then Kylo and Rey team up to kill all of Snoke's personal guards, but then argue about who's gonna turn who to whose side.
The Sith, the Jedi, the rebels, let it all die.
Then the two of them destroy Anakin Skywalker's original lightsaber in a tug of war. Oh, do you know how much that would be worth on eBay? Just as this fight ends, Laura Dern pulls a kamikaze move, jumping her now empty Resistance cruiser into light speed and blasting straight through the First Order fleet. In the chaos that follows, Finn kills his old nemesis, Special Edition Hot Topic exclusive Chrome Trooper.
You are always scum.
Rebel scum.
Then escapes with Rose and BB-8. Kylo Ren lies to Hux about what happened.
The girl murdered Snoke.
And takes over as the new Supreme Leader. Then everyone heads down to the planet Crate, which despite its appearance is not covered in snow.
Salt.
See? The First Order plans to bust through the base's blast door with a mini Death Star cannon.
Miniaturized Death Star tech. It'll crack that door open like an egg.
But they're stalled by two things. Something about love that involves Rose and Finn, but more importantly, Luke Skywalker deciding to actually show up for once. After a genuinely touching goodbye to his sister Leia.
I came to face him, Leia. And I can't save him.
Luke faces off against the First Order's walkers and his former student, but it's all a big distraction.
Skywalker's doing this so we can survive.
Luke's not even there, and I take that thing back about showing up. Luke's actually projecting an image of himself from his home back on Act 2. I know ghosting means something else, but this is what it should refer to. While Kylo fights a Lucagram, the surviving Resistance members sneak out the back of the base with help from the Last Jedi, Rey, who moves rocks with her Force powers. Luke, exhausted and having fulfilled his purpose, disappears from Act 2 and becomes one with the Force, along with his fake hand, which apparently was grandfathered into the whole becoming a Force ghost thing. Poe meets Rey for the first time. Wait, really? How is that possible? And the new rebellion gathers for a Renaissance painting. Also, it's worth noting that the sacred Jedi texts were not burned by Master Yoda, but were taken by Rey and are stashed in the Millennium Falcon. And in one of the world's only pre-credit, post-credit scenes, one of those abused stable hands on Canto Bight reveals that he had secret Force powers all along, which he's using to sweep up. Great job, kid. you're an inspiration to all of us. And that's it. All you need to know about the Star Wars saga before you see The Rise of Skywalker. Well, except for Rogue One and Solo, we breezed right past those. And I guess some of the comic books and the full multi-season runs of Clone Wars and Rebels and Resistance. Plus there's some interesting tidbits you can only experience for yourself by visiting Galaxy's Edge. I mean, just all that stuff and the official tie-in novels, and then you're all set. You know what? And also the video games, probably The Mandalorian. You know what? I don't know. Chewie, punch it. Get us out of here. This holiday, the toys of a generation of Star Wars fans come home. Explore a whole galaxy of Star Wars toys available at Target.